Hello, my loves. How are you? Today, we're going to talk about the purification process that we've been going through in this evolutionary journey of our ascension as we are more deeply embodying all of who we are via our higher self connection, as well as our deepening, strengthening connection with the earth, as well as those of you who have been working on your inner union types of energies. Okay. And I'm bringing this up. I did do a video on the purification process that I will drop in the pinned comment for any of you who have not watched that or who may want to watch it again. And I realized why this is coming up again is because this purification process that have been embarking on is a very layered process, kind of like I touched on in yesterday's video, that we build our muscle and we learn new ways of being. And then sometimes we're catapulted into new experiences or other pockets where we're actually in a situation where we're called to stretch our muscles and strengthen them in new ways. Sometimes it's deepening the practice and strengthening what we've already learned. Sometimes, as some of you have mentioned in the comments, it feels like everything you knew how to do, access to your higher self, access to your kids or your higher connection, just like goes AWOL. And this happens because you're actually ready to go to the next levels. I understand that this can feel disconcerting and concerning sometimes, but it really truly is a signal that you've gained enough strength within yourself to actually broaden your perspective and your connection with how you've been doing things. Usually, what you'll find as you move through these next steps and stages in the process is that once you learn what you've set out on a soul level to learn, those original ways that you connected will probably return in some way, shape, or form. But you also may find that you've actually embodied those energies and you feel more of like an equal with those energies versus like them being above you. So it's actually a cool part of the embodiment process where you've called in those higher energies, you worked with them, you built that muscle, and then when it's quiet, yes, it's because now you have gained enough strength to embody those frequencies and you are ready to level up again. This can be a lot sometimes to like actually digest in and of itself. Okay. But it actually makes a lot of sense if you think about the levels that you have been growing. Okay. This is this is a signal that you've absorbed what you've been learning. And you've absorbed so much, you are ready to step out and practice that muscle. Okay. So the things that you used to go to your higher self or your guides for, start doing some deeper self sourcing. Okay. And like I said, I've also found when I've gone through this, it was that I was pushing myself to broaden my perspectives because there was more tools that were going to come in. Kind of like I spoke about in yesterday's video, I was actually being called to, learn how to drive new vehicles, which it takes a little bit of time to adjust at first. Okay. So I wanted to talk about that really quick. So that in and of itself is even part of the purification process because when you're up leveling, you may find that emotions come up or things that you thought you worked through are coming up again, or sometimes in a new way, or sometimes even stronger or more intense for a time. But again, what I have seen in myself, as well as with others that I have worked with, is that when those things come up, if you can drop into knowing it's coming up because you're ready to clean it up versus you've done something wrong, then you can start to unpack whatever is coming up to the surface. Because what happens is it comes up in big waves, kind of like emptying out your whole closet that you're about to clean out, right? When you first start to pull it all apart, it looks like a bigger mess. But once you start sorting through, knowing what you want to donate, knowing what you want to keep, knowing what you want to throw away, things start to get lighter and more organized. Okay. And if you've cleaned a few closets in your day, you start to realize this process and you're like, okay, I am just going to go into this knowing it's going to get messy, knowing there's probably going to be some things that are going to happen or come up unexpectedly. Because, man, even when you're cleaning out a closet, it brings up old energies, right? Memories of things or whatever have you. So, cleaning out a closet, literally in the physical world, can turn into an emotional experience and a spiritual experience. And I love this analogy because cleaning out the physical world closet does support you on all of those levels and vice versa. Okay. Which brings me to another important part of the purification process. Okay. Many of you are here because of like the spiritual, relational process that catapulted you into this experience. And more than likely, you went through some form of a purification process, especially emotionally, right? Learning to process your emotions and navigate your emotions and work through triggers. I can pretty much guarantee that everybody here has gone through some form of that. But also, I'm sure many of you have gone through a physical world purification process in things like moving to new homes or new jobs or exiting old relationships, starting new relationships. Um, Losing people in your life, gaining new people, all these types of like purification of the old patterns of our old relationships. And then sometimes some of those people even came back, but you came back together in new ways because the old patterns cleared out, kind of like clearing out the closet. But I want to talk to, and I know that you guys have also, some of you have also worked on the physical body purification process of like noticing what feels supportive for your actual physical body in like a nutritional sense, like what feels supportive for you, maybe versus what everyone told you was healthy for you, because sometimes those things are different when you are really getting down to your own nutritional needs. But I also want to add within this, because we are evolving, because we are ascending and staying in physical form, our physical needs, our body needs resources in ways that it may not have needed in the past because we are processing so much more information. We are burning up and utilizing resources significantly faster. Okay. So, like what I found, I'll just share some of the things that I have discovered by myself, but also by virtue of working with um, a nutrition person who's really skilled in those arenas, but also in energy work. So we make a good team. And really, some of the things that are really important is obviously making sure that you're adequately hydrated. Okay. And this means making sure you're not just getting water, but adequate electrolytes, adequate minerals, adequate vitamins. Okay. Because, like I said, our body is really burning through resources much faster on this ascension journey. Okay. So it's really important, especially if you're processing emotions, especially if you're transmuting energy, you're going to want to really look into your nutritional resource needs. And I'm sure many of you may know about muscle testing kinesiology, like where you can actually literally take the product, the food, the drink, hold it up to your body. I like to hold it up to my heart and just ask, is this in alignment with me? Does my body need this right now? And like If it's in alignment, your body will go forward. If it's not what you need, your body will go back. If it's neutral, it might not move. Um, you can also ask the amount of those things that you need with this. If you choose to go this route, I say allow yourself to get into this rhythm of trusting your body at a deeper level. This is where we tap into the body's own innate wisdom, truly letting it speak to us, giving our body the space to show us what it's needing, and the act of asking and then allowing it to give you a yes or a no is building a deeper trust and intuition with your body. And I've even found that sometimes I do that, like I'll know I need something, but I might need more. So I'll ask how much I need and, work with the questions until I know. Sometimes I do just know, but if I'm in one of those like hectic states or I've been really busy and I know my resources are lower, I'll tune back in. Okay, where am I now? Sometimes I'll check in and I don't need it right in that moment, but I'll get guided to check in like an hour later and it'll be a yes. And it's because I've learned that in that first hour, my body may have not been ready to actually receive the nutrients, but whatever I process through an hour later, my body is now ready to receive the nutrients and the nutrition that it's needing and requiring. Okay. So I'm just giving this as a potential tool that you can continue to work with if you already are, and just here's some confirmation to keep that trust building with your body. And if this is something new, you can start to play with it and practice with it and get comfortable with really listening to the natural nature and the innate wisdom that your body is holding within you. Okay. You can use these types of things when you go to the store or when you're, trying to find out if there's something that your body is wanting or needing. Okay. This is important and it may change daily. Okay. It might not be the same every single day because of how quickly we are evolving and shifting. And you guys know how much we're growing through. Okay. On a physical level. This is also important for our emotional support and our emotional mastery, because what is happening on a physical level in our cells, in our body, in the types of resources and supports that we have for our physical vessel have a direct effect on our ability to manage, deal with, process and manage our emotions. Okay. So even if you're holding space for yourself to process your emotions and you're finding that some of them are just not moving, or maybe they move, but then they're coming back and back and back, or there's certain things you've worked really deeply on and they're not moving. This happened to me. And it kind of coincided with multiple things when this was happening. And eventually it dropped into the fact that I wasn't actually receiving all of the nutrition that I needed. Okay. Ironically, it was things I was putting into my body, but my body was not actually able to absorb what I was putting in. And throughout that my journey with this process, I found out that I actually had like an overload of heavy metals in my system, which led to, um, my detox systems being kind of clogged up, trying to get rid of the heavy metals. And so other things were coming into my system and using my resources, like parasitic energies, viruses, molds, those types of things. Okay, things just from the environment, the environmental toxins, all of those things were bogging my system down because as healthy as I was, and as much as I was taking care of myself, my body wasn't able to get on top of the heavy metals. And I'm not saying that everybody has this, but I'm bringing it up because it was kind of a shock to me when I found out that I had heavy metals very high in my system because of how technically healthy I am and how I care for myself. But what I found out about these heavy metals is that one, they're in our environment. Two, they're sometimes just a natural part of the things that we take into our body. But as I went deeper into this exploration, because this is what I do, partly because it fascinates me and I like to understand how things work in the physical world, but I'm also an energy person and I love to understand the energetics for myself, but also for the people that I support at the end of the day. And what I found was that these heavy metals in my system were from multiple things. One, I actually had an ancestor who worked at a chemical plant years ago, and he worked in the mercury department. So before we knew that mercury was so toxic, so he was constantly getting exposed to mercury, which also was then passed down to his children, which one of those was my mother. So it also got passed down to me. Okay. And some of the things that I have started to understand some of the things that were occurring on that side of my family that are directly connected to hormone imbalances, thyroid issues, autoimmune issues, cancer, even mental health issues that were all kind of stemming back to this heavy metal toxicity that was being passed down in the DNA that no one even knew about. Okay, so that was one layer of what I was clearing. I myself also started to discover, back in my young days, I used to smoke cigarettes, and those are also high in heavy metals. Okay, tattoos, actually literal tattoo ink. And I'm not saying not to get tattoos and not to smoke cigarettes if that's what you want to do. I'm just saying if you do it, make sure that you're putting in some type of support to help your body move out the heavy metals. Okay. Because at least, so say you get tattoos or you've had them, and your body may have been able to take care of it. It might not be an issue. But if you're feeling like you're having some autoimmune issues, it may be worth looking into a heavy metal detox to just help your body clear that out. Once it's cleared, you should be good to go. Okay. So there you have it. These are just some of the things that I have learned that I had no idea. So now I want to tell you something even more fascinating that I was shown in the energetics as I went through this detox protocol. Underneath the heavy metals was where we found parasitic energies that I had no idea were in my system. Okay. And we started to work with it, and I was shown that these literal parasitic energies were using the heavy metals as a shield to hide under. So I didn't know the heavy metals were there. And then I didn't know all of these other energies were hiding underneath the heavy metals, kind of like a coat of armor. Okay. And this was occurring inside of the physical body. But because, I look at energies, I also found it fascinating that it was intermingled and interconnected with defense mechanisms and protective mechanisms that I had built up in my system. So as I went through this physical world detox in my actual physical body, I was also emotionally and spiritually unraveling places where I had built up, or my ancestors had built up, defense mechanisms and protective mechanisms that were no longer actually serving who I was evolving into. So I was able to move through those old defense mechanisms and protective mechanisms like dissociation or running or freezing out. And I was able to replace those with actual genuinely healthy boundaries by embodying my energy into my body. And how this interconnected was the places and spaces where I was frozen or dissociated was where my energy was leaving my body and my cells. When my energy left my body and my cells, that made space for the parasitic energies to enter into my body. Okay. So this is a fascinating symbiotic relationship that I discovered and unraveled simultaneously. It was all kind of connected together. So as I cleared the parasites, I found the defense mechanisms. And as I cleaned up the defense mechanisms, I was able to clear the heavy metals and the parasites at a deeper level. Okay. But I was also creating more and more space in my body to actually get into my cells, to get into my body. And by virtue of doing this process, right? Now those things don't have space to come back into my body. I've learned on an energetic and the physical level how to be strong enough and to share the energetics into my cells and into my system that I'm not in agreement or alignment for those things to come into my system. And so now my body's getting stronger and stronger and healthier and healthier. So although those things might are they're just a natural part of our planet and our environment. But because I'm in my body more, I'm able to just naturally now process those out of my system as they come in. Okay. So sometimes where our system gets bogged down is actually where we had popped out or the ancestors popped out in the past. Okay. I know that this is quite a bit of information. Please drop in the comments. Let me know if you're with me. Let me know if you want to share anything around this. But I really think it's important because I also discovered that the frequency of the heavy metals, the parasites, the viruses, the molds was actually the frequency of the lower emotions that was keeping my emotions stuck, that I was not able to process through when I was feeling in those looping motions. But as I started to detox the physical body of the actual energies and frequencies that were bogging down my true energy, and I was able to come back into my system, what happened was beautiful because I started to be able to fully process the emotions I had been working on for so long. Those patterns started to really unravel and lift out. And I started to actually receive the deeper results of all of the work that I had been doing. One, because it was coming into my body and into my vessel and into the earth in an embodied way, because now there was space for it. But also, I was actually receiving the results of my work versus the results of what I was doing, going to the parasitic energies that were keeping me stuck in the lower frequencies, the lower vibes, the lower energies. Okay. I hope this makes sense. I know it's a lot. It was quite a process of going through this, but it all started to make so much logical sense to me that the deeper I got into it, I was like, okay, I can understand this and I can see it from the energetic levels, the spiritual levels, the emotional levels, and the physical levels. And now I can start to implement a solution into each one of those areas. Okay. There was a point in time where that felt very overwhelming. But once I just dropped into accepting that this was the evolutionary process that I had been asking for, I asked to be in my highest state of health. I asked to be shown what were the things that were keeping me unwell, what was aging me, what were the things that are kind of keeping humanity in those energies versus actually more fully being able to embody our full potential. And these are the things that started to come to me. And I know I'm not the only one. I know there's many others doing similar things. And you're probably hearing similar types of things out there. But I wanted to share my process and my perspective because a very, very big, important piece that was very powerful on my journey was actually accepting and being willing to look at the truth, no matter what it was. Because if we're willing to look at the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, because I have to keep it real, knowing that I had heavy metals and parasites and viruses in my body did not make me happy. But at the same time, I was like, okay, now I know you're there. Let's do this. Let's unravel this. Let's clear this out because I faced it directly versus running or hiding or shutting down because it was uncomfortable. I was able to move through it And I was actually able to move through it and recover fairly quickly. Okay, working on the different levels and layers. Okay, we will get movement if we work in one area for sure. But I have found the most powerful shifts in my own purification process when I was in a space where I was just willing to address it physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I was going to face the fears and I was going to face the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it was. I was going to be willing to get the support that I needed. And I was just going to kind of muscle through the uncomfortable part to get myself to the other side. And what was gratifying and motivating about this process for me was that I want to live and I want to live healthy and I want to live happy. And I was asking my body to show me what it needed. And it started to show me where it wasn't very happy. And you know what? As uncomfortable as it was, I was grateful that I allowed myself to build that trust with my own body. Because the truth is, in our natural state, our bodies have a very natural, innate healing wisdom. They know what they need. The key piece is us being willing to actually listen and trust what it's telling us. And I know in a lot of ways, everything I just said to you, I didn't know all of those things. I had to be okay letting myself learn new things, new perspectives, and also understanding that it wasn't anything I did wrong. This was stuff that was in my system before I was even born. Some of it, right? Okay. But it was also, like I said, very, very, very empowering to be like, okay, I can take responsibility for my health and my well being, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The same way I'm taking responsibility for my relationships or for my home for my environment, for my purpose, for my career, right? Like all of these areas, if we're willing to look at the truth, if we're open to asking for the truth and what's in our highest alignment, I'm telling you, you will get the answers. You will. It might not be what you were hoping for at the moment, but it's going to get you where you wanted to go. This has been my experience. This is what I believe. Sometimes we have to be willing to go through the uncomfortable to get what we want, right? Like you can't know what you don't know till you know it. And if you're asking for something that you've never had, you have to be willing to do things that you've never done. Okay? All right, loves. I'm going to leave it here. I know it's a lot. If you want me to do more on this, of course, I would be willing to. If you have any specific thoughts, questions, feedback, I would love to hear from you. Again, this is my process that I walked, that I have experience in, but it's by no means the only way. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and morph it into whatever works for you. Okay, loves? I love you. Hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye.